We're very excited about our next segment because we're going to talk to one of the best advocates the LGBT community has in Congress. And I've said this to the congressman, I have written it on our blog. I'll say sometimes I think he's the best gay member of Congress, even though he's not gay. Gerald Nadler represents the 8th Congressional District of New York, which includes Chelsea and a lot of the gay parts of Lower Manhattan, also includes Ground Zero. Is the congressman on the line?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for joining us today, Congressman Nadler.
You're quite welcome. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you. We mostly want to talk about DOMA and your leadership on that issue, but I think I'd be remiss, since you do represent Ground Zero, if I didn't ask you very quickly about the news of the death of Osama bin Laden, and just ask you what's your biggest takeaway from that. I know you sent out a very powerful statement last night, and just wondering if this shifts the political landscape at all in Capitol Hill.
Well, first of all, I think there are very few times when you get unabashedly unmixed, purely good news, and it is good news. It'll weaken to some extent the terrorist war against us. It will help give some measure of comfort to the relatives of those who were killed. I don't think it'll bring closure, as people say. I don't think you ever bring closure to someone missing at the dinner table, but it'll give some measure of comfort and some justice. So that's all good. I think also it strengthens the argument, which some of us make, that of course there'll be some who will go exactly the opposite way, but I think it strengthens the argument that we should withdraw most of our troops from Afghanistan. I've always said that we invaded Afghanistan back in 2001 because Al-Qaeda was maintaining base camps there from which to plot and stage terror against us, and we had every right to do that, and we did, and we should have. And we overthrew the government within a week. But after that, the mission morphed. It changed. And we're trying to build a new nation and to have a country that can be ruled from Kabul, which has never been the case in history. They've never had a unified government there. And it is neither within our capability nor within our need to do that. As long as we retain the ability, the CIA says there are fewer than 50 to 100 Al-Qaeda people in Afghanistan, as long as we retain the ability to go in and take out a camp or a compound if they're launching attacks or plotting attacks from against us from there, as we just did, we don't need to try to conquer the country, and we shouldn't do that. I think this strengthens the case for what some of us have been saying, that we should just withdraw most of our troops from Afghanistan. As for the political impact, I think the political impact will be transitory. Everybody will respect the president. It'll be a little harder to make the demagogic argument the Democrats are weak on national security, but I think the next election is going to be determined on the economy, and this doesn't affect that.
Absolutely, the economy is. It's always the economy, stupid. I don't know how many times we can use that phrase; it never gets old. But I would say it will be interesting to see what kind of message the White House gets from this. I mean, they have gotten a lot of praise. Congressman, by the way, this is Carrie Ellevelden, so I'm co-hosting with Joe Sudbay. They have gotten a lot of praise. In the New York Times this morning, you have Vice President Dick Cheney saying the administration clearly deserves credit for the success of the operation, and former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani saying, I admire the courage of the president. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of message the White House gets from this if they
I think
they'll
get a lot of credit, and it'll be harder to make the argument that they or Democrats generally are softer on national security. But it's a year and a half till the election, right. And I'd look back at 1991 when President Bush the first had the same. It was being praised to the skies for very relatively cheaply defeating Saddam Hussein's invasion of Yemen and Kuwait. And he brought the troops home, and everybody was very happy. But he lost the election a year later because of the economy. So I don't think you overemphasize the political effect.
Right. Well, let's turn now back to LGBT issues, and specifically this question of DOMA. I've did some reporting on this King and Spalding situation with the law firm that backed out of defending. And, one of my big takeaways from the reporting is that this issue is moving so fast that and public perception of it is moving so fast, same-sex marriage and the Defense of Marriage Act, which are kind of two separate issues, but they're related, that law firms and political actors and people around the nation are trying to hit a moving target, and King and Spalding seems to be representative of a situation where they thought they were on safe ground, taking defense of this, agreeing to defend the law, and then decided they weren't. Congressman, is this a political disaster for the Republicans to be trying to defend this law, or what do you think? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's a political disaster for them to be defending the law, but I do think that they're on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of politics and the wrong side of right, obviously. Much of the history of this country, and I say this in every speech, is a history of expanding the understanding of what we mean by men when the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal. And it didn't include black people, it didn't include Native Americans, it didn't include women. And now at least in theory, it includes everybody, and LGBT people are finally coming in. And it's inexorable. The history of our country is inexorably in one direction. And you see that, and if we all lived 600-700 years of peace, we could relax and know it's going in the right direction. But our task is to hasten it, because people don't live for 600 years, and we have to make sure that people enjoy the benefits of as far as we're going to get. And you take a look at a political opinion poll on the issue of same-sex marriage, and for people under 35, they don't understand what's the question, what's the issue. So that tells you where it's going. It's inevitable. The question is how fast. And my efforts and others' efforts are really directed toward trying to get the changes that are very likely to come, or inevitably going to come quickly, so people can live with the benefits of them, rather than saying, "Gee, my grandchildren will have those benefits."
And you're trying to do that in this Congress with your legislation, the Respect for Marriage Act, H.R. 1116. Mm-hmm. Can you give us an update on the status of that legislation? And
well, it's been reintroduced. The Respect for Marriage Act is a bill that would repeal DOMA, pure and simple, with a couple minor changes, but basically repeal DOMA. A couple minor additions, I should say, but basically repeal DOMA. And it's been reintroduced. It's got, I think, over 100 co-sponsors. And we're pushing it now. It's introduced for the first time in the Senate this year. We didn't have Senate sponsorship last Congress, but Senator Feinstein and a few others introduced it in the Senate this year, which was a major step forward. They're going to hold hearings on it, which is another major step forward. We're going to be pushing the Republicans, but in the House, it's very difficult. We don't have any Republican co-sponsors yet. Hopefully we will, but I don't know that. And we're going to push it. It's not going to pass Congress before the next election, but it's going to make progress. And the real question is, will this legislation repeal DOMA, or will DOMA be repealed by the courts first? I don't know the answer to that.
Right, because there are a number of cases moving forward, which is why, again,
which I'm fairly optimistic about.
Right, the administration, and we had cases last summer in Massachusetts that found DOMA unconstitutional. Those are moving up on appeal. There's a new case in New York, Edie Windsor's case. You have about 110 co-sponsors right now.
Yep.
And I have two questions. One is we saw there was a hearing right before the Easter Passover break.
Yes, there was an anti-hearing.
Anti-hearing, right. And we played a clip of your interview with Maggie Gallagher, your questioning of Maggie Gallagher. That was just brilliant. You did an amazing job. You always do, but it was particularly great. What I'm wondering is, do you expect more of those anti-hearings from the Republican leadership? Are they gonna push any of their legislation that would? I don't know. Okay.
I don't know. We had a hearing this morning in for the full Judiciary Committee. Our annual the Attorney General comes in once a year and just to make a statement and then answer all questions from all members of the Judiciary Committee. And a couple of Republicans are pushing him on the administration on that subject, the administration decision not to try to defend the constitutionality of DOMA in court. And I pushed back, and the Attorney General pushed back. And some of the Congressman Sensenbrenner actually threatened to try to cut the budget of the Attorney General's office, of the Department of Justice, actually, by the amount of money that Congress will be paying this private law firm to do what, in his view, the Justice Department should be doing. And of course, some of us said that it's very dangerous to try to cut the budget of a department because you don't like what they're doing, to try to coerce the department, especially the Justice Department, which is supposed to be independent legally, to coerce them in their legal determinations. I don't think they're going to push it too much, frankly, because I don't think it's a political winner. I think they're going to push it enough to satisfy their yahoos, and I think that hearing was for that purpose and some of the questions.
These hearings are a bit for show, Congressman, is what you're saying.
Yes. Well, I think so. I mean, that's just an opinion, obviously, but I think so. They can serve no other purpose. I mean, they're not going to. The Senate won't entertain any. I mean, look, we're passing tomorrow a vicious anti-abortion bill, which the Senate won't bother taking up. So why are they bothering with it? For political reasons.
Yeah. Well, let me just shift real quick. It's a DOMA-related issue, but surely there are some same-sex couples and probably in your district that have faced this, that are binational couples, and can't have a green card application approved based on the Defense of Marriage Act. But we've had this situation recently, of course, where the Citizenship and Immigration Services, for a brief window of about a week, decided to stop processing these applications. In other words, stop rejecting them. And for a while, advocates were hopeful that they would hold those applications in abeyance, that they wouldn't process them until the legal issues around the constitutionality of DOMA could be worked out and the courts could finally have their say. Yeah, Congressman, here's my question. Should the executive branch be deporting loving partners of American citizens based on a law that the president himself has declared unconstitutional?
No, I don't think so. It's a slightly complicated question. And you remember, I'm sponsoring not only the Respect for Marriage Act, but I've been sponsoring the Uniting American Families Act for 10 years. Marriage aside, just to say you shouldn't keep loving couples apart, because heterosexual couples, if they fall in love with a foreigner, if you fall in love with a foreigner, you can marry that person and sponsor them for immigration. A gay couple can't marry, and you can't sponsor your foreign partner for immigration, and so the laws may keep you apart. So that's why I have the Uniting American Families Act. Marriage apart just says you can sponsor them for immigration anyway. But should they be deporting people? I don't think so. I think it's a little complicated because they make a distinction in two things. We criticized President Bush for determining on his own. He would sign a bill, and he'd say, there are 20 provisions of this bill. 3 of them I think are unconstitutional, so even though I'm signing the bill, I won't enforce those 3 provisions. We said it's not up to him to decide that. The administration takes the same position. They say, look, we will not argue for the constitutionality. We will not defend it in court, but we will enforce it until it's declared unconstitutional. We'll enforce the law. I think that's the proper position generally, but it doesn't mean it. But it doesn't. But there are certain things that you can put in abeyance, so you don't harm people while the constitutionality of the law is being adjudicated. Right. So I signed a letter with Congresswoman Lofgren and various others to ask the Department of Homeland Services to use their discretion and hold off on deporting these people while this issue is being decided, because you don't have to say we won't enforce the law. You can say we're not taking specific action. And in immigration law, by the way, there's something called deferred action. Right. Deferred action means, in effect, that there's no legal excuse not to deport you, but they're going to put it at the bottom of the pile and leave it there for as long as they want. And people have been on deferred action for years or even decades, in fairly rare cases. And there's no reason they can't do the same thing. And it's fair and it's human not to deport someone if you're arguing that the law that mandates the deportation is itself unconstitutional. You should just wait. I'm not saying you should declare the law unconstitutional and say you won't enforce it, but don't take certain actions.
Congressman Nadler, thank you so much for joining us. We certainly appreciate your time and all the good work that you do on behalf of LGBT Americans nationwide. And I look forward to seeing you next month at Netroots Nation in Minneapolis. You're hosting a panel on marriage. I'm going to moderate it.
I'm hosting it and you're moderating it.
That's right. Looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Take care.
I'm sure it will be. Thank you so much.